What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. So this is the Sprint Review. So this is a personal finance show that I do every 2 weeks live on YouTube. And it's personal finance for tech professionals. So like I said, this is called the Sprint Review, and I am Mike Zung. My name, so I'm the founder of a fee-only financial planning firm called Java Wealth. And of course, focusing on tech professionals. And I used to be a tech professional myself, and so that's who I serve right now. Again, I appreciate you guys joining in. And today, for today's topic, it's going to talk through something that it's a question that I get a lot, and that is deciding whether to invest your money in a Roth account versus a traditional savings account. I'm going to be talking through the differences between the two, and then also just some of the things to think about whenever you are making your decision on which one you should contribute into, and then some different takeaways of what the right solution is, and it's definitely different for different people, right? So before I get started, let me do the important disclaimer. So this video is only general explanations, and it's not specific advice from a tax perspective, legal, or investment advice. And before doing anything, then make sure that you consult with a tax, legal, or investment advisor. And if you don't have one, then feel free to reach out to me, and we can talk and figure if I'd be a good fit, or help find someone else that is a good fit for you. Okay. So just to get started first with the question of Roth versus traditional savings. So the first part is where do you have that decision? So the two main places where you have that decision are either in your 401k. So with your employer, whenever you enroll in your 401k, then you'll have, a lot of times you'll see the two different options of what percentage do you want to put into a regular traditional 401k, and how much do you want to put into a Roth 401k. And then the other primary one is just in an IRA, or an individual retirement account. And so those are the two main places where you have this decision. And so the question, whenever someone gets faced with that decision, is just like, okay, which one makes sense for me, and what's the way to think about the right one to do. And so I'm going to walk through an example. I'm going to go through a bit of an illustration to show the differences between the two, and then hopefully that'll help in figuring out what the right way of thinking about it, so that you can make a better decision for yourself. Okay, all right, so let's get started. So as far as the differences go, just kind of a quick explanation of the two different types of accounts. So this is the first time I've ever tried this analogy, so I'll be interested to hear the feedback as whether this resonates or not. So I have an illustration, and we have a person here, and they are trying to get to the other side of this like into this other land, and there are two bridges that go to the other side, and both of these bridges, I'm going to say that they are magic bridges, and while you're traveling on these bridges, that your money doubles, right? And so in our example, we have someone here, and let's say that they have $5,000, right? And so they have these two options. One option is that they could go onto this first bridge, and whenever they go here, then they have $5,000. That much goes onto the bridge, and then that can multiply, or it doubles, so multiplied by 2, and so it turns into $10,000. I forgot the dollar sign. That's all right. Okay, so that's one path that you can take, and the other path is this other bridge. But before getting onto that bridge, there's someone here. Whether I'd call him a troll or not, we'll leave that open for debate. And this person says that before you get onto this bridge, you have to give me 20% of your money. So in that scenario, and whenever they have their $5,000, but in order to get onto this bridge, they have to pay 20% of their money, so they only have $4,000 here. Right? But then it has the same magic powers to where it multiplies, and then so you have $8,000. Right? But then if we go back to this first one, and rather than someone being here in the front where you had to pay them first in order to get on, then in order to get off of this bridge, you have to pay this person. Right? And so in this example, I'm going to say that this person over here also says you need to pay me 20% of your money in order to get off of this bridge. So we say 20% here. And so in order to get the money off of this $10,000, you pay 20%. Then on the other side here, you have $8,000. Right? So this is one thing that I see a lot of misinformation, to be honest, where whenever people are comparing Roth versus traditional accounts, they do this math and they say, hey, imagine you put $5,000 into a traditional account and then it grows and then you can take the money out, but you have to get taxed. And then on the other hand, imagine you put $5,000 into a Roth account and it grows and then there's no taxes, right? So, but the thing that analogy or that example doesn't take into account is in order to get money into a traditional account. So I guess burying the lead a little bit, this is the way traditional money works, and then this is the Roth bridge, right? So in order to get that money into a traditional account, there's no friction, there's no upfront payment that you have to make. But in order to get money into the Roth account, in order to get $5,000 in there, you'd actually have to bring more than $5,000, right? I'm not going to do the math just off the top of my head, but you have to bring more money to this person in order to get $5,000 on there. So this is an illustration to show that if these two people are collecting the same percentage, then from a strictly math perspective, there's no difference between whether you put that money into a traditional account or whether you put that money into a Roth account. Because in both scenarios, whenever you get to the other side, you have $8,000. Okay, so hopefully that settles that part of the debate and illustrates that a big part of the decision of whether to choose a Roth or traditional, it comes down to your tax rates. So that's why I hesitated on calling it a troll, is because this is representing the IRS, right? So this is taxes getting paid either upfront before you start investing, or taxes on the other side whenever you're taking money out. And you're in the land of retirement where you're old and you have a cane and a bad back. So okay, so hopefully that gives a good framework for just the primary difference is where traditional is they call it pre-tax. So the money is invested into a traditional account before you ever get taxed on it, and then you're going to get taxed on the other side. Or Roth, they say that's post-tax because you've already been taxed here, and so the money is invested after it's already been taxed, right? And then once you get here, then you're home free and you don't have to pay taxes on it ever again. Okay, so that is obviously the primary difference between the two, between a traditional account and a Roth account. So as far as a few of the other differences between the two, one is something called required minimum distributions, or RMDs. So let's see, to describe that, on this traditional bridge, what happens is whenever you put money into here, the government has not taken anything in taxes. But whenever you get to retirement, the government here says, hey, at some point, since we haven't collected any money yet, we are going to force you to take money out of here to cross over here so that we can start collecting taxes on it. And that requirement are RMDs, required minimum distributions. And so the way that it works, there's I won't go into all the details of how RMDs are calculated, but basically right now, once you turn 72, then you have to start taking money out of here, right? And the reason why that is important is because whenever you get to retirement, then you have you have a certain level of income, and if you are forced to take money out of your traditional IRA, then that can affect how much taxes you have to pay, like what tax bracket you're in, right? So I know, just to make it easy, I made this 20%, but if you had a bunch of money here and you're required to take, several tens of thousands out, then it could make your tax bracket, rather than being 20%, maybe it bumps you into higher tax brackets like 24, 32%. Who knows? But basically, you have less control over it there, and so that affects for retirees. That affects things like how much Social Security tax you pay, and then it can also affect things like Medicare premium. And so it could force you to pay more in those other taxes because of the forced income that you have from RMDs. Okay, one thing that I will say about the RMDs is that you can also do from a traditional perspective is something called qualified charitable distributions. So if you it's not a loophole, it's actually an incentive that the government allows, is that if there's a charity that you would like to give to, then a really good strategy is doing something called a QCD. So what you can do to skip this tax person, you can make charitable contributions directly from your traditional IRA to the charity, and it skips this person, it skips the taxes here, and then also it counts as part of that required minimum distribution. So you're not forced to take as much money through this person and pay the taxes on it, right? Sorry, my glare is a little off in order to see all that stuff. So, but yeah, that's just one thing that I wanted to highlight, because that's a very, very good planning opportunity for whenever you're in retirement and that you are charitably inclined. And it also is one of the factors to think about of which choice you make here, thinking of your charitable intentions whenever you're in retirement. Okay, let's see. So the next one that I was going to talk about a little bit is this idea of Roth conversions. So whenever you're here and you're working and you've chosen to put some money into your traditional account, then another strategy that is available and makes a lot of sense for some people is, if there's years while you are still working that your income is lower, then this tax rate will this person says, hey, you can put money onto this bridge, and I'll only take 10% of it. Just making that example. And so what you can do in addition to your particular savings going onto here is you can take money out of the traditional account and run it through here so that you're only paying that lower percentage, and it's moving money to a spot where it's no longer getting taxed anymore, rather than have to go through the tax man whenever you're going to take it out, right? Okay, and then the last thing as far as the difference between these two is the idea of how you would actually invest between the two. So I'm making this somewhat silly example of money just goes here and then it just magically doubles, right? But what I'm really trying to paint the picture of is while money is inside of either of these accounts, then you're investing it, right? So it's invested to where it's able to grow, right? So yeah, because actually a common misconception is thinking that a Roth account and a traditional account, that they are different types of investments, but really the two are just the rules around how you get money in and out of the accounts. But then whenever it's invested, inside of the account, they can be invested in the exact same things. It can be whether it's a S&P 500 index, or just any kind of mutual funds or stocks and bonds, different kind of things. Like between these two can both hold the same types of investments. So with that being said, here let me clean up some of this. I think we talked about the QCD stuff already. Yeah. So the other point to make on how to invest in these two. So if you see with, whenever you put money in the traditional account, yes, you want it to grow and you want it to, you want it to do well for you, but you're still going to have this tax bill on the other side. But on the Roth account, whenever you get money in here, you've already paid all the taxes that you're going to pay on it. So with money inside of here, it's a common strategy is to be more aggressive in how you invest in a Roth account, because since you've already paid the taxes, now it's just like, oh man, I want to keep it here, and I want it to grow as quickly and as much as possible, because I'm home free after this. I don't have to pay any taxes in order to get money out of it, right? So that's another common strategy, is that your Roth account has more aggressive investments. So again, I should pop up that disclaimer saying that by no means is this specific advice, and so you got to figure out how much risk you're willing to take, and finding that right mix of investments that works for your situation. Okay. Okay, so then really the next part is just figuring out, whenever you're over here and you're making your decision, so what goes into that decision, right? So the most obvious one is the tax rates, right? So while you're here, I'm going to clean up a little bit more. Okay. So yeah, while you're here, whenever you're making the decision, the most basic question is, do you feel like you are going to pay more taxes today than you are going to in the future, right? Because like what I just illustrated, that if they're the same, then it's a wash from a strictly math perspective, right? It's 8,000 either way, right? But if, say, you're over here and you're in a very low tax bracket, like you're in the 10% or the 12% tax bracket here, then then maybe you would lean towards, okay, I'll go ahead and pay 10%, 12% in order to get the money here, right? But on the other hand, if you are a high income earner right now and you're paying 32%, 35%, something like that, that'd be kind of a tough pill to swallow in order to get money here. But on the other hand, you can put money into here, not pay any taxes, and you don't have to pay, and it lowers your income for that current year too. So that's definitely the biggest question, right? And the thing that makes it difficult to really answer that question is we know what your tax, you can make a really good guess on what your tax rate is here, but this is a future version of you and a future version of the tax code. So you have to make an educated guess of what we think this tax rate is going to be, right? And so other stuff that goes into that decision is, if you're young and you are putting a lot of money into here, then your income, whenever you are retired, has a higher potential of being in those higher tax brackets. So making this number higher, right? So those are just a few of the things to think through. And then the other part is from completely a prediction perspective of, from a government perspective, do you feel like tax rates in general are going to go up or go down, right? So I know right now they are somewhat historically low, but I mean, if you would ask us 10 years ago of, hey, what do you think tax rates would do, then most everybody at that time would have said, oh yeah, they're definitely going to be higher, but they haven't been. So that's just an illustration of you can't fully predict it, but you can make educated guesses on what we think it's going to do. Okay, and then actually another one that is important is thinking of the state that you are going to live in, because whenever you're here, you're currently living in a state, and right now in my illustration I'm showing one tax person saying, hey, give me 20%, but there's also a smaller person that says, from a state tax perspective, they're collecting income tax as well too, possibly, right? If you're in a state that has income tax. So if you think that maybe whenever you're working, you're in a state that has state income tax, but your current plan in retirement is that you're going to be in a state that doesn't have income tax, then that's going to affect these two numbers here, like the total number. So that's another thing to consider as far as whether you take the traditional path or the Roth path, right? Okay. Okay. So those are the main things to think about as far as the decision between the two. And so lastly, what I would say is, from an ideal perspective, it's like, okay, what's the ideal scenario for whenever you're in retirement of where you have your money and how you have things laid out. And so the most ideal scenario isn't that you have everything into the Roth, because then there's no more taxes, right? So you'd actually like to have a mix of the two, so that you have some money in the traditional side here, and then you also you have money on the Roth side, and then another one that I didn't put in here is just regular taxable accounts, right? And the reason why that it actually makes sense to be spread out across these is because on here on the traditional side, here I can erase this. There's actually an amount of money, of course, given the tax code the way that it is now, that there's an amount that you can have as earned income that is essentially tax-free. Because if you think about a I won't go into all the details actually. So the standard deduction, $24,000 for a married couple. So you could take, $24,000 out today out of a traditional IRA if you don't have any other income, and then you basically pay no taxes there, right? So there's that, right? Or whenever you work up the tax brackets, maybe you're only paying 10%, 12%, something like that, right? And so it's nice to be able to, pull from a traditional account and essentially set your tax rate for how much you are going to pay. And then if you need more money in retirement, then you can pull from your Roth account in order to supplement your income, right? So that's the ideal scenario, is that you actually have that you have, it's called tax diversification. So that you have some pre-tax money, some post-tax money, and then some taxable money, and then you're able to draw from a few different places and do some pretty cool tax planning. So okay, hopefully that has helped in painting the picture and helping you decide which path to take while you're, because here's where you are right now, and you're making the decision, and you're projecting what your retirement version is going to look like. So, okay. So next, so the last part that I'll do is doing the Reddit question of the week. So that's one where it's addressing any questions that are on Reddit, and trying to cut through some of the I shouldn't say that. I'll stop there. Okay, so if I go to here, then so for the Reddit question, I decided to pick one that's essentially the question that we are addressing right now. And so this is someone that's Zendroid1, who's saying that I'm 42 years old and married, and I've been contributing to my 401k for about 12 to 14 years, and then also gets a small pension that accumulates monthly. So they're currently doing a Roth 401k, so they're currently paying the taxes up front here and doing the Roth, and so that's where their money is going. And then it says my company matches 6%. So, and actually that's one thing that I didn't get into before, but I can do that real quick. Is so in a 401k, if you are putting money into your Roth 401k, then that's going to go here. But any company match will go into the traditional side. So by you putting money into the Roth side and a match going here, there's actually already an automatic, splitting that is happening of your retirement, of your future retirement income. Okay, so going back to the question, when I start contributing, I was only making about $42,000 per year, and I'm up to around $110,000 now, and still doing Roth. And then they bumped up how much they're investing. So to that end, whenever you're making $42,000, then your taxable income is going to be pretty low. And so in that scenario, it's probably, it does make sense to go ahead and pay up front in order to get it into the Roth side, right? But now being up around 110, then you're possibly getting into a higher tax bracket. This person doesn't talk about whether their spouse works, because that really, whenever you figure out your tax bracket here, it's about your household income as far as what your household tax rate is going to be. And then they say that they also live in a really high cost of living area, so in Southern California. So whenever I was talking about your potential state taxes, maybe if they're planning on being in a state that doesn't have state income taxes, that'll play into which one to do between these two. Because right now, the extra tax from California is getting added here on the front end. Okay, so it says, I know the differences between Roth and traditional at a high level, which hopefully you guys do now. But now I'm wondering if Roth is still the best option in my current situation. And actually, so this person does say that they plan on retiring in a much cheaper cost of living state. Doesn't necessarily talk about whether it has a different state income tax, but more than likely it'd be that too. So in that scenario, it is getting to that point where maybe you do shift over into the traditional side and not just be putting money into the Roth side. So, okay, yeah, I think that is about it. That's about a wrap. Don't see any questions coming in right now, which is completely fine. So yeah, I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I hope that this somewhat goofy analogy has resonated. It's a little bit better than just talking straight numbers, and have a little bit of extra illustration there too. So yeah, I appreciate you joining in. And if you have any questions, or if you would like to get a hold of me, then you can go to my website, which is javawealth.com, or be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, because I'll be here every other week at the same time, and I'd love to have a little bit more interaction with you guys. All right, thanks again, and I will talk later. Bye.